Okay, why don't we get started here? Okay, call to order the meeting, and please silence your cell phones if you have cell phones out there, just so we don't get disturbed. And Director Hansen is going to lead us in the invocation. If you'd like to stand, please.
Heavenly Father, please be with us tonight as we try to make some intelligent decisions regarding the recovery of this town, and on behalf of all the citizens and all the customers of PID, please be with us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so we'll move right on to number 2 here, approval of consent. Oh, roll call, please. Georgianne. Yes, thank you. You know we're here.
I'm trying to keep. I'm trying, Ward.
Keep him straight. I'm glad she's right here next to me.
Vice President Shelby Boston.
Here.
President Mark Wolf.
Here.
Director Greg Allen.
Present.
And the Division 2 Director Cetus Bacon. Following resignation of Director Kellogg effective December 31st, 2019.
Okay, now we can go to approval of consent calendar. How about that?
I will make a motion to approve.
I will second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, public participation. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda? Ward?
I'm not going to be here for closed session item 11, but I will make this comment. If you haven't, Shelley, already received your papers, you're being sued too.
Aye.
The March 23 deadline, as I read it, is going to be put off. That's okay. I am on record, just to remind the board, with Judge Mossberger, that I will speak on behalf of the employees in their favor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward. Anybody else? All right. Okay, we'll go right to district manager's report, staff report.
So Jim Ladrini's here for the staff report and facility update. So I'm going to actually kind of give it over to him to kind of give you an update on where we are with the recovery projects, the staffing, and the service line replacement project.
Thanks, President. Not totally prepared. I got to prepare this afternoon. I have some accurate numbers and some information. So I'll probably read a bit of this. I'll try to make eye contact as much as I absolutely can from what I practice here. So I want to just first start. It's a privilege for me to be able to give this update tonight. I say that because it's an opportunity to give credit precisely where credit is due. Treatment plant operators continue to produce outstanding quality water and deliver it seemingly effortlessly throughout our transmission and distribution system. Trust me when I say this is far from effortless. It is a chore. And these highly trained, knowledgeable, and skilled operators work extremely hard to achieve what some might take for granted. In addition, Laura Capra is a fierce employee and has become a top-notch water quality technician. Her efforts in collecting samples throughout our system are simply awe-inspiring. She has an exceptional attention to detail, and her commitment to this district is something for others to aspire to. Laura, along with the treatment plant operators, are well led by Bill Taylor. My hat is off to Bill for his attention to things that might have slipped through had he not been a part of this team. Our customer service staff performs admirably in their own right. Their interaction with our customers through often daily changes in information, responses, tactics, and operations is difficult, to say the least. They're our first-line communicators, and my hat is off to the front lines of our customer service team. Karen Rice brings experience and highly valuable knowledge to the office and is an amazing asset to our organization. Without Georgiana Barrio, I'm just not certain where this district would be. Mickey Rich deserves a nod for her efforts as well. She has been responsive and helpful to me especially related to the Water Quality Advisory lift letter process. She's really kept a good eye on that, asking really important questions and keeping my eye focused on that really nicely. Waterworks engineers. It is difficult to put a finger on all they do for our organization. This is a daunting task, and Sammy Cater and his crew have taken it on with a spirit and approach that deserves great respect. Alliance for Workforce Development has contributed a great deal to our work and our efforts, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't offer my gratitude to them. Sutton Enterprises continues to perform well in the service line replacement project. Our interaction seems to be working quite effectively as we continue to refine and perfect this process. Mutual aid partners, of course, deserve our gratitude. We haven't used them recently, but they were certainly a major part in getting us to the stage we are today. Distribution staff continues to plow through the seemingly unending challenges that they face each day. Damage to service lines and water mains caused by debris cleanup, tree removal, and construction projects keep operators and utility workers on their toes. They replace service laterals, install backflow assemblies, pressurize water mains, and they do it all without complaint. Day in and day out, these men and women approach the tasks assigned with a positive attitude, and I could not be prouder to serve them in the capacity I am right now. I have seen tremendous growth and dedication that I simply have not seen before in this organization. My gratitude also goes to our customers. Through their frustration, confusion, challenges, and difficulties, I also see an overwhelmingly strong spirit of cooperation and understanding. As we stand together and support one another, I suspect our relationships will not just endure, but will become stronger. All right, now to the numbers. So we have nearly 1,330 standing structure service connections that have been sampled. This leaves approximately 220 remaining to be sampled, which equates to about 14% left. The project completion date for this project is the end of March. And what that means is that we will know with certainty the condition of the service lateral at each standing structure and the quality of the water in the water mains supplying water to these parcels. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of our water mains have been sampled and cleared. This equates to about 155 miles. We continue to pressurize and sample water mains weekly, and will do so until we are fully pressurized and clear those mains as well. And that's a process that we go through. It takes a little bit of time. They've been depressurized, have either had water stagnating in them for quite some time, or have not had water in them when we go to pressurize them, maybe due to leaks or breaks or some other reason. So we have to do bacteriological testing and VOC testing as well. So during that time, because of the potential of bacteriological contamination, we do not activate the main right away. So we wouldn't even activate that main under the Water Quality Advisory, simply because of the potential for bacteriological. It was VOCs, and we were dealing with that. We know how to deal with that. But bacteriological stuff is different, and I'm not even going near risking that. Sutton Enterprises continues to replace service lines and make strides in efficiencies. Including today, they have installed over 60 service laterals, many of which are long side laterals, and sometimes a bit tricky. We're finding a lot of stuff in the ground that you just sometimes shake your head. What on earth? So, but we get around them, we get them fixed, and we get service lines replaced. For Sutton, the first 2 to 3 weeks, they were averaging about 10 to 12 service line replacements per week. But as time progresses, their production rate continues to climb, and they're doing quite well. They're making great headway. Just to be clear, alongside most often requires crossing the road, 2 lanes, 3 lanes, 4 lanes, depending on where we're at, cutting through asphalt, trenching across. Sometimes you can't bore it. So they take a little longer. They're a little more work. So we're trying to capitalize on the fact that we might be able to get an additional service line or two in that same trench. So we're really watching that as we progress through that and trying to capitalize on that. So we wouldn't necessarily apply water to that service line at this point, but we would have the infrastructure available there for a future connection. So we may have to go back to the main to tap and put a corporation stop in and attach the service line, but the service line is already there, so we don't have to get into the road again. So we're really working hard on trying to capitalize on that. The current contract completion date for this project is May of 2020, and it is expected to replace a total of 650 service laterals. PID operations staff led by Trent Flaherty, Mark Cavalli, Brent Smith, and Tristan Blade are responsible for replacing 151 service laterals as of count today. That was this morning. They have installed over 1,250 interim water supply backflow assemblies. And the paper's sticking. And continue to work on about 140 treble installations. And just to clarify what we were talking about treble installations, it may be a service line that was destroyed by the fire. We're not able to find it, or it was destroyed during the cleanup, tree removal, any other damage like that. So some of these we're just having trouble even locating where the meter service connection was. We make every attempt to do that. If we can't find that, then we make arrangements to install a new service line there, which ultimately we need to do anyway, but we really try to limit that because we really don't want that old infrastructure just hanging there off that main, right? It's just another part that can fail in the future, so we really try to limit how we respond to those in that particular manner. We were experiencing a request for interim water supply at about 6 or less a day now. As of yesterday, our crews have installed 1,040 of these beautiful green blankets. And actually, that doesn't count today. And I think we probably had near 100 installed today. So we'll continue to work on that as well. Credit for the coordination of interim water supply program and other day-to-day functions go to Kaylin Trotter. She has been a tremendous asset to us in the operations department. Preliminary numbers indicate that through sampling and service line replacements, over 1,100 services have been cleared. Breaking this down a bit further, we have cleared over 900 laterals through sampling, and the balance of about 200 through service lateral replacements. We recently completed the accuracy testing of 100 randomly selected water meters and discovered that 53 of 100 selected meters failed to operate within prescribed parameters. However, there is more work to do on analyzing this data before we can draw solid conclusions on that. So we can't automatically just say that 53% have failed. We really have to analyze the data, but that's a tremendous amount of meters that are failing in at least one of 3 levels of flow rate through each meter. We sampled 65 3/4 inch meters, 35, do the math, 35 1-inch meters, 3 1.5 meters, and 2 2-inch meters. They were randomly selected, and so as we look at that data, I was able to connect the meter number to an address, and so we were able to see where we looked at around town. So it's not like we went down the street and said, oh, we'll just grab these meters right here. It's a broad selection of not only size but throughout the damaged portions of town. Some of them are, now these appeared to be physically undamaged, all right, and that's what we put on the test bench. We know that several of those probably experienced some reverse flow at high rates and forward normal operating continuous flow at extremely high rates. They're just not built to do that. So when we analyze them on a test bench, we look at low, medium, and high flows, and it's just all over the board where they're reading out of the parameters. Some on 1 or 2, very few on all 3. I think we've had 2 or 3 that just simply wouldn't register. So the inside was completely, maybe the connection at the top, the magnetic connection was worn out, or the disc completely gone. So we are working on sorting out that data collected through this process, and we'll report more on this at a later date. About 17% of the meters collected during the sampling process and other tasks, like interim water supply, have shown physical damage that is induced by the fire. So when we look at about 17% of those, we can see that they're melted, deformed, the registers completely burned off. Some of them still have the meter box melted around them. Some of them you can almost tell that it's a meter. But that's about 17% of what we've collected so far. As we move forward, we will embark on water main repairs and replacements, installing permanent service connections that will include meters, new meters, backflows, and our AMR system, automated meter reading system, leak detection, as well as continue work in replacing and installing service lines, and develop and execute an extensive water quality monitoring program, among other tasks that are vitally important to the health of our water system and, most importantly, to our community. In closing, and as a reminder to us all, PID staff, along with Waterworks engineers, have and are continuing to develop methods for the recovery of our system that are not yet written in textbooks and are not taught in schools or covered in operator certification courses. We have collected data and have touched more of a water system than I suspect any other purveyor. I am proud to be associated with the people that have brought us this far. I am grateful for their efforts, passion, and dedication. I am equally as grateful to our customers, who are our neighbors, that support us and allow us to continue to serve them in a manner that is meaningful to us and beneficial to them. So if you have any questions, I do my best to answer them.
I have a comment, and all those people you thanked, you missed one, and that was you, because I think you were a big part of the whole thing.
I echo that. I think your leadership has been pretty remarkable. The amount of dedication and time you have taken to answer calls, to talk people off the ledge when they're really frustrated, and you've done it with a smile and this warmth that you bring to the job. And so I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that you did take the time to write such a beautiful statement to share and really call out the good work that goes on every day. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely, Jim. You know how I feel. I can't picture PID without so many, several key individuals. I mean, I know that everybody just has done an amazing job. But I also know the hours that you've put in. Probably a couple years worth in the last year. Over and beyond, because every time I drive by, your car's out there, and it could be a Sunday morning. You are appreciated.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Thanks, Jim, too. You're the glue that kind of holds the whole distribution system together, as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, we lost so many people over this course of this last year, and new people coming in, and you're solid, and that's great. Keeping it going, and we notice it, and we really appreciate it. So, thank you very much.
So, no questions?
I'm sorry you only had an afternoon to do that, but it was awesome.
Yeah. How about explaining to the folks maybe present here and online why we are getting that meter data about the meters, why we're taking the meters and figuring out which ones are damaged and which ones are working.
Because he told me to.
Okay.
Explain that. So there's two facets going on here, a FEMA claim and an insurance claim. And we needed the data to support a full meter replacement. The insurance does cover the meters, and what we're trying to prove out with this is that there's a certain percentage of meters that are damaged, and that the cost associated with testing all the meters is more expensive than just replacing those meters. We don't want to put back in the meters that were in the ground. We want to upgrade those meters to a more hardened meter, which is the brass meter with the concrete box that you guys approved the last 2 board meetings ago. So that requires FEMA upgrade. The insurance is going to take the first dive at it, and then we're going to have FEMA take the next dive at it. The other portion of that is the backflow assembly, too, that we're trying to get included in there. So there's actually 3 portions of the damage that we're assessing. There's the contamination damage. So each one of the contaminated service lines, we are making the connection between the service line and the meter, that meter also is contaminated. So 53% of burnt structures with meters were considered damaged. We are now then going through the process of looking at just a random selection of meters. 20% of the 1,700 pulled out are considered physically damaged, and then 53% of 100 sampled are considered mechanically damaged. To extrapolate those percentages back into a total damage percentage, we haven't got there yet because we have to cross-reference the meter back to an address, which were there, and then trying to cross that back into if that sample that was taken at that meter, if there was a sample taken, did it come up positive or negative for contamination? So if it came up positive for contamination, well, then that meter already was damaged. If it came up without it, then now we're extrapolating that out into the undamaged sections or the uncontaminated sections that now a higher percentage is now considered damaged. So that's kind of where we're at with it. And we're keeping track of all the costs associated with it, all the testing results. And so that is going to be our submission into the FEMA portion of our claim, which then will back into the insurance portion of our claim. So that's the reason why what we're doing behind all of the data and how we're trying to capture all that data for our claim into our insurance.
And those 100 were on standing structures?
No.
Or
Not
just any
necessarily. They were
meter?
randomly selected.
Okay.
So they're a mix of, I don't even know if you could say 50-50. We will look at that. We'll collect that data when we analyze the other things that we're looking for. And we'll find out exactly standing structure, contaminated, not contaminated service line, destroyed parcel, and exactly what that looks like.
Okay.
This was our first leap into it, and so we didn't want to start with a huge number because it is very time consuming to do all of that kind of investigation. So we wanted to start with 100, which we felt was a good sample size, and then try to push that into what the data said. And then to be honest, I think 53% is good, but that wasn't good enough for them. So this was kind of pushing that more into that realm because this is kind of the data they were looking for from a full damage to say 100% is damaged from the meter standpoint.
So is there any correlation between size of service and failed meters? Have you guys looked at that at all?
I don't know that we can really look at that. I have to really chew on that a little bit, but my gut instinct tells me that there are probably a fair number of 3/4 inch meters that could have been on a 1 or an 1.5 inch service lateral. Oftentimes you would find the model 25 5/8 by 3/4 meters on a banked meter set, meaning 2 or more meters per set. And so they would be on a shared lateral, perhaps an 1.5 inch, an inch if it's 2, something like that. So that would be really, I just really have to chew on that and see.
We did 5 2-inch, right? And it was 2 out of 2
2 inch and 3 1/2 inch.
Okay.
For a total of 5.
Yeah, and 3, was it 2 out of the 3 failed? if I remember.
So pretty close to the ratio.
Yeah. So it's hard. Just with that sample size, it's hard to really make that correlation at this point in time.
We probably don't have a program
So-
for that.
Well, we can actually safely say that an 1.5 and 2 inch meter are on at least an 1.5 service lateral.
Right.
And probably in those larger sizes would be on their appropriate 1.5 or 2, depending on what that is. Simply because they're set up with a flange, they're not set up with a meter spud. It's not a nut that connects the meter to the angle stop. It's actually a flange, and the flanges are appropriate to the, most generally, appropriate to the service line size and to the meter size.
So, and then going just kind of leads right into my FEMA update.
Can I ask one more question
Go
before
for
we
it.
jump to FEMA? So with all of the great work that's going on with all the repairs, have we gotten any current data on how much we're still losing? I know that was one of the big.
So we did an extrapolation of water loss. Waterworks did kind of looked at what our current water loss was, or our prior water loss ratio was, and then did some calculations based on production. Based on that, we don't have any meters out there. We had to do some kind of quick calculations on what we felt the per capita amount of water being used in the system was at the end. With the data that was brought in from, we just pulled in all the construction meters from debris removal to get data off of that, so we knew how much water was being used for debris removal. And what we saw from all of that extrapolation is we were looking about a 70% water loss right now, which means we have a lot of leaks.
Still, even after all the repairs that have been done?
Yeah, most of the repairs that have been done are ones that are surfacing. What we're thinking is there's just a lot of leaks in the system that we're not even seeing surface, and the ones that surface that aren't creating damage at this point in time, we're just letting run. And I think as they're starting to get down into as they're starting to replace these service lines, they're starting to see more and more of these small leaks, these little things that have happened out there. And there's still kind of a debate going on about the cause. We know it's damage due to the fire, but it's just that these pipes were so old and that there's clamps all over them. And we just had a discussion yesterday about when you take that pressure away and then you put that pressure back on there, and how that's going to kind of rattle that pipe and to create these new leaks, or to kind of those leaks might open up more. Or those clamps might have seals there that might have relaxed, and then they're not sealed back again. And the gaskets, one of the things that Sammy talked about was rubber gaskets and how they're not made to dry out. And so there could be gasket issues in there. So we are doing an extrapolation of that. Right now we have two bids in. We're looking at bids for leak detection, to maybe have a crew go out there and basically do a leak detection of the whole entire distribution system. And it's twofold. One is FEMA claim, because FEMA is requiring us to put our whole claim into one bucket, meaning main lines, service lines, meters, AMR, backflow. So we need numbers on that. We need damage rate, and the other is for our own internal knowledge about where do we put our crews, where do we start focusing our attention on after we kind of get through this first initial push of we're getting the alternate, or the backflows installed. We're caught up on that. We're getting pretty good rate on the service line replacement, and we're going to start to be able to have some time and come out of the water a little bit to start working on the distribution system. I'll let Jim kind of
I
explain.
received the third informal estimate this afternoon before I came down here, so I'll pass that on tomorrow, and then we can look at those and recommend an approach for that. I think Kevin's spot on, and Sammy had brought this up some time back, and we had a group discussion early on about leakage rates, and one of the industry standards for repairing leaks especially on steel mains, is to apply a clamp with a stainless steel clamp with a rubber seal on it. And that's actually some of the service saddles too. They just have a small rubber O-ring basically that fits against the steel pipe. And in some of those cases where we lost that pressure, that pipe could have just shrunk or misshapen a little bit, especially with the load on it now that it doesn't have water in it. So I suspect that we'll find a number of those clamps that are spraying water sideways, kind of in a fan, and so you wouldn't really notice them disrupting the earth or surfacing.
Right.
So leak detection, acoustic leak detection, has the ability to pick those up. I would imagine that some of those could be down as small as a quarter of a gallon per minute or less. But I know that we have leaks too up in the 20, 30, 40 GPM range. We just come upon on Circlewood the other day. The contractor had installed a new service line and had not yet backfilled their excavation. And it filled up with water and it overflowed. And I thought, well, check on that contractor's quality. And their quality was great. They did the job wonderful. The inspectors were good. We backed the water out, got the sand out from around it, and there was a hole in the bottom of a 6-inch main that was probably, it's really difficult to judge some of those, 80 maybe gallons per minute. So it was really, really pumping. Those we want to catch. And I think that we are experiencing some of those when we pressurize new mains. Now we're down to 2-inch steel and PVC mains. Still we have some 6-inch mains. Generally when we're pressurizing now, we're finding service connections that we weren't able to find before. So they're certainly leaking water. And some of the valves, some of the control valves, I mean, we're pretty old water system, and some of those valves have been in the ground a long time. Some of them are dual disc, right? Valves that sheet metal against metal, and they corrode over time, and they don't necessarily close completely. So we could literally have water seeping under there and then just leaching out like a drip line into the ground.
So in reality, until we have enough customers that are continuously flowing water, these are actually probably helping the treatment plant to keep water moving. I mean, granted, we don't want to not fix them, but
Fixing cool.
yeah, it's kind of a mixed blessing, isn't it?
I had a customer some time back that was not happy with my decision to let some of these leaks go. And you've got to fix them. You've got to fix them. It's horrible to waste this water. And I believe my comment was something to the effect of we're managing our leaks. And we are managing our leaks, and we're managing our leaks specifically for that reason. I think probably everyone is aware of a leak that was on Lower Clark Road by Lava Creek Golf Course.
They fixed it yesterday.
Let that go. I talked to the owners of Lava Creek, and they said, oh, no, Jim, it's fine. Let it go. It's just running across the road. It wasn't doing any damage. So the main's off the road. Well, we fixed it the other day. They had no sooner backfilled that thing, and one of our customers called and said, what are you doing? I said, nothing. Why? And he says, you sent a crew down to Clark Road? I said, oh, yeah. It's been a while, and we needed to get that one fixed. He said, you took away my water feature, man, on my drive down.
So there you go. One's man's leaks, another man's, water supply.
Water feature.
But that truly was a perfect example of managing our leaks, because that is the very end of the zone. Our zone break is right across the street from Lava Creek Golf Course. The main comes down Clark Road, it's a 12-inch main, and then it shoots across and it goes down Old Clark Road and it dead ends down there. So there's not a lot of users down at that end of that Clark Road. So allowing that water to flow and stay fresh really was helping us draw water through Bushman and across Ewald and from Pearson Road and down Clark in front of Thomas Hardware. So it's not ideal, but yes, it's beneficial right now.
I didn't know if I wanted to say it out loud, but I wanted to answer.
Well, but you know what, we'd be releasing it from the dam, or we'd be releasing it the way Jim's calculated leaks.
And the cost of producing water is not a tremendous amount more money to a kind of, the fixed cost is much more than the variable cost associated with that. So, yeah. So back to the FEMA, the 428 ask that we've been talking about for a while.
If I make a comment?
Oh, go for it. Sure.
I'm a Zone 4 project captain until January 1. I left that. But I came with a group of zone captains to drop donuts off in June. And he wasn't there, which didn't surprise any of us, especially Kyla Abel. She says, Jim's never here. But anyway, I just want to say that as a resident, that we understand what you're doing and we really appreciate what you're doing and your crew. I live on the Acorn Ridge over by Greg's father's house, and you guys spend a lot of time on my street. And I just want you to know that we appreciate that. I also go to just about every meeting possible in this town, and I see him there all the time. I also see Kevin a lot, and I'm just wondering if you guys are Walking Dead or what.
I feel like it sometimes. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So the 428 ask, we've had to do a few different things to make sure that it's moving forward in the way we want it to do. So the first thing was, under the 428 program, you have to get a project in FEMA's hands and approved within a year after the disaster, which we weren't able to do that. So we asked for a 6-month extension to May, and that's been approved by FEMA headquarters. The other issue with the 428 is under our version of the program, you're not allowed to do any permanent work until you have a 428 that is approved, and we couldn't wait for that. So we had to go out and do permanent work with the service line replacement project. Under the newest version, which was after our disaster, you're allowed to go through and do permanent work under a 428 program. So we're asking for a version change from version 3 to version 4. That's with FEMA headquarters right now. We've already done that with administrative costs. Before you had to do all kinds of different calculations with your administrative costs before you got paid. And under the newest version, you're allowed to actually submit those and get paid as you get things approved. And that has been approved. So we've gotten version changes before in the past. So that's where we're at with that. The other thing that they've required us to do is package it all into one system, is what they call it. So the system includes the main lines, the service lines, the meters, the meter boxes, the AMR system, and the backflow assemblies. And so what we had before was we had a split, and we were trying to do the 428 with the service lines and keeping the main lines out of there because it was so difficult to go out and get a damage description on the main lines. So by us now having to package it, that's where we're looking to go out and do leak detection in a pretty hasty manner and to do the extrapolation that Sammy's done for us to look at it from a leak standpoint and then putting a cost associated with that on that leak standpoint. The benefit of putting it all together is based on hazard mitigation funds, which you can get through your the damaged service lines and system. You're able to basically double the cost associated with the damage with hazard mitigation upgrades without having to do what they call a BCA, cost-benefit analysis, which makes hazard mitigation upgrades much easier under that program. So us having a very large claim in one bucket helps double that, which gives us quite a bit of money for hazard mitigation upgrades, which we're going to go after the concrete boxes, the brass meters, and the backflow assemblies for that portion. So that does there's benefits on those two different sides. So right now we are still formulating our damage description once that's in FEMA's hands, which we've been working and having meetings and going through that the last couple weeks. Then we'll formulate costs. Those costs will then go to Army Corps of Engineers for their review. And then at the end, it'll be a negotiated number that we're looking at, which will be sizable. So that's where we're at with the 428 ask. We've been doing a lot of work. Jim's been doing a lot of work with his guys up there to kind of get damage numbers back to us. And then Waterworks has been supporting us in a lot of these different kind of damage description tasks associated with getting that over to FEMA. So
you have until May to get the application in, basically? And then are they giving you a turnaround time for when those funds would be?
not at this point, but we're thinking within 2 months of that application in. What we heard, it takes about 2 months to get through what they call the CDC, and then it'll go to Congress for Congress to approve. And then once that is done, those funds will be dropped into the state, and then the state will be our basically our bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long does the Army Corps of Engineers review take?
You know, they said it shouldn't take too long, especially with a engineer stamp on the damage description. So with Sammy's support on that and them doing a lot of the calculations, Colleen from Waterworks used to work for the Army Corps, so she knows kind of what they look for in their estimates. They don't think it's going to be a long turnaround on that side too. So that's been a lot of time kind of in the last couple of weeks that we've been working with them to try to get this thing moving, because we are running up into deadlines.
Calendar doesn't stop.
No, exactly. And then I'm going to walk through our 404 hazard mitigation grant applications. If we remember before, we had 4 grant applications in for this disaster, and then a 5th on a disaster previously that I talked about last time with that A-zone pipe, that we feel like we're going to get approval on that. But we had 4 in for this disaster: service line replacement upgrades for the undamaged service lines. That would have included a service line upgrade, or the service line to be replaced, new meter installed, the concrete box, and the backflow assembly. We just got word back on a conference call that they are not going forward with that application, which I was very disappointed in that, because the application was very similar to another agency out there that went through a fire disaster, and they approved that same application. So hydraulic modeling and distribution system upgrade. This was a 2-phased approach to look at the hydraulic model of our system and to be able to pressure or to test it against a natural disaster, look for deficiencies in the system, and then have monies available to go fix those deficiencies from a size standpoint, volume standpoint, and they have told us they're not going to move forward with that also. We had a high hazard flood study with the Magalia Dam replacement. This included to look at the high hazard of the dam, and then look at replacing Magalia Dam and having a design. They have tentatively approved a planning study for this, which would include the high hazard study and a design for a new Magalia Dam. So that's actually a really positive. There's a lot of grant funds out there for dam replacement, as long as you have basically a shovel-ready project. So this would give us a shovel-ready project for a Magalia Dam replacement, looking at moving the spillway to the other side of the dam, and then getting the road off of the dam, which is another positive. So that would bring in federal funds, from highway funds, from Homeland Security funds, and then from any type of water bonds or funds out there that might be available. So that's positive. So
Is there an appeal process to the first 2 at all?
We are appealing both of them. We are appealing the distribution service or the hydraulic modeling, because we feel like that it was a phased approach, just like the first one where they gave us planning funds. They didn't even look at giving us planning funds for that, for the other side, which would give us at least a hydraulic model that we could stress the system against, and then go look for same type of thing, look for outside funds to replace distribution system infrastructure. So we're asking for that to go forward, and then for them to look at the service line replacement. Again, with updated numbers too, because when we put the grant application in, we were talking about 60% that were undamaged, where that now has gone down to 47%. So the number has gone down, so there might be a little more. I don't know. We'll see. And then the BRES expansion with the additional tank, that one was denied also. That one we weren't too concerned about because we feel like the PA funds, the 406 mitigation funds, will actually take care of that portion of it. So that grant application, we're okay with kind of giving up on that one because we feel like the 406 funds will take care of that one. So that's the good and the bad news.
So are we engaging with legislators to try and get some assistance on the ones that have been denied?
Well, we just got the news 2 days ago, so I will reach out. We did send Senator Feinstein the list to let her know that we were interested in this. I asked kind of where the decision making was happening, and it's at Region 9, which is the West region. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure how things, I think they're trying to spread money to everybody possible, is what it sounded like to me. That some of our projects were too high dollar for them, is what they said, where I don't think they're wanting to spend those funds. I did make it very clear to them that I felt like the process was, it put a small district that was affected by a disaster in a very, it punished them. Mm-hmm. Because of the timing and all of the information. They basically said they want a 30% designed project shovel ready for them to approve.
Well, we're trying to recover from the most catastrophic event.
Yeah, and you have very limited time to put a grant application into.
So right, and so in essence, that time that went into applying for those is lost time when it could have been applied towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really frustrating.
It's extremely frustrating. So I will make my frustrations known as high as I possibly can. So, and from others who have worked in different regions, they said that Region 9, their justifications was not the same as other regions.
So do you think there's some benefit in the board writing a letter so you're not just penning something by yourself?
Yep, absolutely.
So what was it, the other disaster that got approved? What region? Same region or?
I believe they were saying Region 4. What's region that they had, not this disaster, but how they treated them differently.
Right, yeah.
I believe it was what's Florida in?
I think it's 4.
I think it is 4.
Or where's Houston?
I don't know.
It's
It's one of those. One that they have continuous disasters going on, that they're more apt to giving the funds back to those affected districts. So remember, this is a competitive grant application. We're competing, and they're supposed to give priority to the counties affected by this. So we were lumped into the 2018 wildfire disaster declaration, but it included Butte County, Los Angeles County, and Ventura County. And
we have more clout.
We lose.
And they have less affected areas. So you have this large metropolitan area that has probably shovel-ready projects sitting on the shelves that they were able probably just to be able to slip right in that looked really, really good to them. So that's where we're at with that. It wasn't the best news, but at least we might be able to get a design for a new dam out of it, which that would be a huge benefit for the district. So, other things that have been going on, I did take 2 supervisors for a tour of Paradise. I felt like it was very beneficial. A lot of interest in looking and helping PID with projects. Some of the ones that maybe weren't in favor of the Intertie project, we might have turned them a little bit to give them a good understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here. Took them up and showed the watershed and how clean and pristine it is. Merle at the treatment plant gave a great tour to them and showed them all the intricacies of the treatment plant and how we're continuing to have clean, pristine water, and really truly get them to understand that we have the stranded asset is that treatment plant, and that it is state-of-the-art, treats water great, and that we just don't have the customer base to support the volume necessary. So I felt that it was a good process. The other thing too is we met with Dan Newton, who is the Northern California DW Division of Drinking Water individual to go over the consolidation study that was required through the backfill funding. They have approximately $500,000 grant that they were able to receive from the Division of Financial Assistance. They have reached out to Sac State to actually do the process. It's a very holistic process. It's not a forced consolidation. It's to look at all the options available to PID to help us sustain ourselves. They're going to bring in outside consultants from a economist, financial support, engineers, and all the different outside agencies that we need, that we feel like we need. And the biggest thing they're going to do is get public input. So they're going to hold quite a few public meetings to get the flavor of the public, and they're going to bring a lot of those stakeholders to the kickoff meeting so that everybody kind of has a voice available to so that they understand what the global side of things that they want to see. So that includes our public, Town of Paradise will be involved, Butte County will be involved, the City of Chico would be involved, regulators will be involved, all the individuals will be involved in this kickoff meeting to have a voice into what will be a final package. Their final package of what they see is options, is not to force their recommendation, but to give options about what is available for the district in moving forward. So that's where that is, and it sounds like we're going to have a lot of input into it to make sure that it's a very holistic view. They're also trying to make it so that this is something they can take to another affected district and kind of mirror what they're trying to do here for us. So,
Kevin, those public meetings will be up here.
Yep.
On the ridge. Okay, thank you.
I know the majority of them will be up here, but there might be some that are in Chico because there is people down there that are looking to move back, up the ridge that want to have input, that they might do some public meetings down there. They might be at some in Orville, so there's, but right now what we're doing is we're going to have a pre-kickoff meeting, and myself and Dustin are going to go down just with a small group of the individuals that are going to be doing this so that we can all kind of bring forward who we feel needs to be part of this kickoff meeting going forward. So the initial kickoff meeting.
I would strongly encourage them to reach out to Dr. Robert Eiler.
Oh yeah, he's from Sonoma State. Yep.
Yeah, so he just gave a great presentation at the Economic Development Conference in Reading last week. I actually saw Sammy Cater there.
Oh, excellent.
And he has a lot of very specific to Butte County information that I think would be really helpful for the feasibility study.
Excellent. Do you know if he put any estimates on repopulation?
Yes. I took pictures of them.
Oh, great. I would love to have them. Spillway investigation. So we are still working with the Division of Safety of Dams, especially now that we're into the winter season, about additional monitoring of the spillway. And to make sure that we are monitoring outflows out of Magalia Reservoir, trying to make sure that we keep it low enough that we're not having to use that spillway going forward. And so Gentera is working on getting some more information over to them, and our treatment plant's working to monitor the outflow of it, and making sure that there's no issues associated with it. At this point, there shouldn't be really any issues. Gentera should be on site here in the next couple months to do a damage assessment of the spillway itself from the fire, and then also doing our annual dam surveillance from that standpoint too. And we are now working with Dustin on looking outside of our district to see if there's an opportunity for a raw water sale in this next year. It's going to be weather related on what the market looks like. but we're starting to formulate a plan of how to deliver water further than Butte County and maybe even further than the Delta. And to look at the supply associated with that. The one thing that we'll have to do is go to the Water Rights Board and ask for an emergency change, 1-year change of place of use, and they're very open to that. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. There might be having to do some multiple agreements with some valley water districts to be able to use some of their conveyance opportunities to get water from Butte Creek maybe into the Feather River to give us a better opportunity to move that water further south. So we're working through that. We're looking for outside agencies that are interested. Dustin has a really good pulse on that from state water contractors looking for additional water, but also looking for maybe some people in Butte County, some local farms or some other water districts that might be interested in getting that supply. So the other thing is I am in contact with Del Oro about looking at an opportunity to deliver them our treated water to their Lime Saddle and Paradise Pines districts. So instead of them using their wells, that we would then just sell them raw, treated water to both of their districts. That would save them from pumping. It would save them from pumping up Lake Oroville, from having to take water from Lake Oroville, and then we could then have some additional customer base. That's gone fairly well. I've had lunch with Bob a couple times, and so we're actually moving that conversation forward, which eventually will get to you guys for approval or negotiations. NPDES permit. The Water Board is working on rewriting that NPDES permit now, and they expect it to be going forward or being available to have our final permit by April. So that was quicker than what we expected. And so our consultant has got them all the information they need. They are working through that, and it looks like there will be no change to what we assumed, which would be no need to change our process, and that the dilution study will satisfy all of their needs, which is wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Did I miss you when you talked about Miocene?
Miocene Canal. Right now there's no change on the Miocene Canal. We are in constant contact with the Miocene Canal Coalition, but right now our hands are pretty much well tied in what we can do until PG&E really gives up control of the negotiations with Toll House Energies. We're kind of not in a position to really kind of dip our toe into the water at this point. I've been very vocal with some of the leaders around the state that we are very interested in those assets if they were to come available.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
Been busy.
Yeah, busy.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
All right. We can move on to the treasurer's report. Ross, would you enlighten us?
Yes. So at the end of December, our cash position was down about $600,000 from the month prior, net to about $7.2 million. We're continuing to process customer requests to permanently disconnect. Those have slowed down pretty substantially in the last month. We only had 15 in December, which is down quite a bit from what we were seeing in the months prior. As those customers are disconnected, they're no longer receiving their bills. However, as Jim mentioned, the lines that are cleared, they return to the active rate the next bill cycle. So he mentioned there's about 1,100 of those customers that are returning to the active rate. So when they receive their letter of potability, they're receiving that notification that in the next bill cycle they'll be returned to that rate. So. We also started billing for outside water sales to Del Oro this last month. So we billed for October and November transfers. That amounted to about $36,000 in related revenue. Continue to process requests for interim water supply. Still cranking out quite a few of those per month. We had about 85 this last month, up to a total of about 1,400. and have about $540,000 in related revenue just for this year in that. Residential fire flow testing, those are still coming in at a pretty steady rate. Had about 50 additional this last month for a total of about $47,000 in related revenues. As far as recovery-related expenditures, we have seen that just for the first 6 months of the year, those expenditures are actually nearing what we had originally estimated for the entire year. There were some significant changes so far in the year that kind of increased those numbers. The first was the approval of the waterworks contract, that additional $1 million that we had originally only estimated to be $1 million. So that's a contributing factor. Also, the demand for the interim water devices. We hadn't really originally estimated that that many people would be requesting these. So the costs associated with that have been pretty substantial as well. And then lastly, we've been completing the water sampling a little faster than we'd originally thought. So that's the costs associated with those have been a little front-loaded on that. Lastly, the first week of February, we'll be having our financial audit for actually 2 years. So they'll be completing the audit for June 30, 2018 and 2019. Last year, we were pretty much all set to go. I think they were supposed to be here in November, and so that obviously didn't work out after the fire. So they're going to actually knock out 2 audits at once. So that'll be, we're prepping for that right now and be hopefully knocking that out early February.
In your spare time.
Yeah. So that's been the big push on my side, is starting to prep all that documentation, getting ready for that. So. And one thing I did want to mention as well on those recovery-related expenses, we will be doing a mid-year budget review. So Kevin and I will be looking at that in February after the audit's complete, and we'll be able to come up with a kind of a projected budget for the rest of the year. So, yeah, that will be coming to you guys hopefully in the next month or two.
Do you want to talk about, or you maybe stepping in front, the FEMA expenses that you're trying to get obligated?
Yes. So we had a status meeting this last Friday with FEMA. We're working on finalizing the 2 claims for recovery-related expenses and water sampling. So we've actually provided them with all the documentation they've requested. The big push now is to get everything in the right format and get that claim finalized. So I'm working closely with Aptum, our public assistance consultants, to get all that put together. And we're hoping to have that submitted for approval within the next month or so. So that is an additional, I think, $1.3 million on the emergency funds, and then it's about $1 million, I think, on the water sampling. So there'll hopefully be some funds flowing here in the next couple months from FEMA for those 2 projects.
So as you're seeing our cash decrease, it's because we're front-loading those expenses, and to try to get those expenses reimbursed creates an obligation of a project, which that is becoming, it takes a lot of work to get those projects obligated. But once those projects are obligated, we have front-loaded all of those expenses, and Ross has done a great job of giving them stacks and reams of paper, and they actually say that there's so much information there that it's difficult to get through, which is good. And so as soon as those are obligated forward, then those reimbursements will be then already available for reimbursement to the district. So our cash position is probably going to go like this and then spike quickly back up based on how much we've put out for those expenses.
Are there strings on that 1.3 million? I mean,
No strings, because the expenses have already, hopefully the expenses have already been basically approved.
Right. So
that money should be coming back to us. That should be available to us to do whatever we would
Right.
like, because we've already front loaded it from monies that
That
we
have
should
been
be able to do whatever
expended.
we like with.
Right. Got it. Okay. Good. Thank you.
So that's all I had. I can answer any questions that you guys have, though. Vinny?
Do we have contingencies if it takes too long to get those reimbursements, though?
We're going to have to start bailing water.
We do have some contingencies though. So we have
Don't make
Besides
me
the
have
bailing of water.
right. So I mean insurance proceeds. So we have our kind of backfill request in for that
Okay.
we're getting very close on as well. And then in addition to that, we have the community disaster loan through FEMA. It's actually on the agenda a little later. It's about 1.3 million. That basically acts as a line of credit so that we could draw that down for operating costs. In the meantime, if those funds don't come through.
So what we're telling FEMA is that if the obligations don't go forward in a quick manner, we are going to have to make decisions that are going to stop recovery. Meaning suspension of contracts for contractors, for recovery operators. So those are things that we don't want to do, but those are things that we're also communicating to them to basically let's get this ball rolling and start moving forward with obligating these projects. We feel like we're on the cusp of getting these projects obligated, so we feel like we'll be in a position to get reimbursed fairly quickly. But Ross is correct. There's monies that are coming in. We just had a meeting with the insurance today about some of our claims, and they're looking to get us money in for those claims that we have. That we would kind of be shifting a little bit of the funds back and forth to make sure that we're still flowing. So, and then as of 7/31 or as of 7/1/20, we have the next round of state funds coming in, and so we'll be working with them to make sure there's no holdup on that. And so I worked with Dan Newton at the Division of Drinking Water to make sure there was no contingencies that we haven't been working through to make sure that there would be no holdup on that portion. He doesn't think there would be any. So his communication with the Department of Finance is that they're moving forward, they're doing what they're doing, so there should be no holdup on those funds. And that's at 7.3.
Right. Was that noted in the January budget? Did you? I didn't see it.
That will be for the next fiscal year.
Right.
7/1.
In the funds for this fiscal year were in the budget.
No, I understand, but the January budget, the proposed budget that the governor released last week.
I think these funds were already obligated in prior budget.
Okay.
Yeah, they were already obligated, even though they weren't paid. They were obligated in the prior budget.
Okay. There's just,
Oh, I know.
winds shift, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, it's not in here.
I know. Yeah, no, they were obligated in the prior budget.
Okay.
But I'm going to, and this will be something that we will probably maybe bring back to you guys in the next board meeting. Maybe not the next one, but the following is looking at some lobbyists and to try to go back to the state to ask for some more funding based on that. One of the contingencies on the funding was looking at what we call the Year 4 project, right? And looking at outside, and because we're running into these roadblocks that we didn't assume would be there, that maybe we can go back to them and say, hey, we need to go back to the drawing board. It's not our fault that we had these roadblocks, that we're running into some other political issues, then maybe they can then drop another third year at us for that to allow us to have a little more breathing room. So kind of use that to our advantage.
Very good. Any other questions? Ross? Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it very much.
One thing I forgot to say, I wanted to kind of show you the bag. Because I think this is an ingenious, and I think that.
And I just want to say how much I appreciate that I've seen them popping up all over town. And after I made my
I think this is,
hissy fit.
it made them so that you can just open them up.
Oh, nice.
Instead of having to pull them all
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's.
So you got a place for your spigot, yeah.
in there. And these are manufactured locally.
Sacramento, which our hat goes off really to Normac, Tammy Lewis, the manager of Normac in Chico, contacted a supplier in Sacramento, and an amazing price. It's a
Oh, good.
really solid product that fits our current need with the use of interim water supply the way the assembly is constructed now, and absolutely adapts to our permanent service connections. It's nice.
And they hide
I know.
the ugly pipes. So, I mean, they're just much more appealing than looking at a bunch of pipes.
Yes.
I put a great deal of thought into what you said about that, and I recognize that when we have appurtenances, I mean, to be quite blunt, a fire hydrant isn't the most attractive appurtenance that protrudes from the ground. So I think that when we approach what a permanent service connection looks like, we really need to consider a couple of ideas of how we protect that assembly from a potential fire again, because we saw a lot of damage to our meter service connections because of shrubbery and hiding of these components, right? And then also that make it aesthetically pleasing as possible. And so I think some of how we configure our service connections and where we place them, I think will help in that.
I appreciate it.
And just another clarification so that everybody knows. So when an interim water supply is put into a burnt lot and it's been used, and then someone comes back and builds and has a new service line ran, we actually bring in a new interim water supply or a new backflow for that connection. We're taking that one back to the shop and we're scrubbing it and putting a repair kit on there, just so that everybody has 100% guarantee that every part that is part of their service line is brand new and not contaminated.
So Jim, when these are going on, and then I'm noticing still the traffic barricades are still over them. What's the plan? I had a customer actually ask me this. How long until those are removed?
So at least through the tree work.
That's what I said. So I said I would suspect. Yeah.
I think ultimately we'll try to collect their barricades after the tree work and this major disruption is complete. And then of course there's going to be some left out there when we do the permanent service connection. We'll retrieve those at that time. But
Well, and then we'll have PG&E coming in undergrounding too. So I mean, I think they're going to be out for a
They're
while.
going to be out there for a while, and they're there for that specific reason.
Yeah.
To
Protection.
protection, but to draw your eye to
Yeah.
them.
Right.
You know, and so,
Because you noticed them, they're working.
Well, no, I mean, customers are noticing, I mean, people, but yeah, I think it's smart. It's a good strategy. I don't know if, we'll see when the tree work starts, right?
Yes, sir.
that is going to be a big challenge for operations as we go through. I don't know how, exactly how it's threatening the public right away, right? So the idea that we're felling trees in a public right of way, even if we're gently laying a tree down, we have two things that we're really concerned with is shallow buried pipe or asbestos cement pipe, which fractures quite easy from that. And then because they're not taking away the slash, we're going to have hidden appurtenances again, which took us months to discover. So the idea of having a barricade out there on almost every appurtenance. Literally, when they were hauling slash away before, they would sometimes, the grappling hooks would pick up a hydrant and pull a hydrant right out. So we'll try to stay ahead of that in communications with the tree work, but definitely things that we need to pay attention to when we're there. Or when they're there.
Jim was just mentioning how ugly fire hydrants are. I live in a small town called Brisbane, which is about the size of Paradise. But what they did was they painted all their fire hydrants to look like people that were working for the fire department or police department, which was really cool because it was taken on by a group that.
There was a contest in Paradise. There was a contest in Paradise, and I want to say early 70s, where everyone adopted a hydrant and could paint it to a specific way. One of the coolest ones was by my aunt and uncle's house, and they made it into Snoopy. My wife painted one as an American flag, but it was an adopt a hydrant thing, and it was just a community support thing. But they were incredibly visible.
Well, we might see people painting their covers. You never know. Decorating them. Yeah, it could be. Mosaics.
You heard it right here. All right. Thank you. All right. So we can move on now here. Oh, yes, please.
That'd be good. I move to accept the manager's report as treasurer's report. Sorry, Kevin.
That's okay.
I'll go ahead and second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. The expense approval report?
Stated investment policy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
We
Okay.
have a couple under the.
Oh, that's right. We do. Yes. Okay.
So
Still up.
yes, so our district investment policy basically requires a review of the policy and acceptance annually. It basically the point is to delegate authority to authorize investment of district funds and provide some guidance on how those funds should be invested. Currently, that we have no change recommended to the investment policy. I was going to provide a kind of a highlight of the what's within that policy, starting with the objectives of the policy. So the objectives are investments primarily is safety. The second objective is liquidity, and the last objective is yield. So it places high priority on safety and liquidity above yield is kind of the point of that. For the authority to invest district funds, it's based on the California Government Code. It authorizes the treasurer to invest those funds, and then it also allows for the appointment of deputy treasurers. Currently, those individuals are the district manager, office manager, board members that are involved in the finance committee, and it also allows for us to consult with investment advisors. So those would be everyone that you would be authorizing to invest funds by approving this policy. It also lays out reports that are required to be filed regarding investments. It requires a monthly report of transactions, as well as a quarterly summary report. So these monthly reports will be included in the treasurer's report moving forward, and the quarterly reports will be filed quarterly moving forward. Next, it lays out some guidelines and specific investments that are allowed to be invested in through this policy. These are also all based on government code. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of that.
The only one that is different from the state's guidelines is the third one down here, which says government obligations, or state obligations, sorry, that the board in the past had put California preferred. So when you're looking at states, that you would, if they're equal, you would invest in California versus outside of California.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Any questions?
I was going to move to approve the reaffirm the continuance and delegation of investment functions as provided in PID rules and regulations, Chapter 14, investment policy.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah, so
Oh, there is one more, yes.
next is the
Investment
example.
report, yes.
That first quarterly investment
I'm
report.
thanking you each time you do something, okay?
As you were saying, I was like, I don't recall ever seeing one of these reports
Yes,
before
so
until today.
with the fire and turnover in the treasurer position, these haven't been filed quarterly. Moving forward, they will be. So you can expect to see these once every 3 months moving forward. This first one, so we have $7.23 million invested in cash and investments, which is our cash balance. The majority of these funds are invested in the local agency investment fund. So what that is it's basically a pool of local agencies that's managed by the state treasurer's office. So this includes like special districts, cities, counties, school districts across California. Pool these funds so that you can get better returns and it provides higher liquidity. So the great thing about this is the returns are fairly high for the liquidity that you have. So it allows for next day withdrawal of funds, which is a huge plus right now because we're requiring a lot of withdrawal from our investments, which is the primary reason why the majority of our funds are invested there currently. The next page is kind of... Yeah.
They can see it.
Oh, okay.
They can see it.
It just provides a summary of our investments, as well as the average yields of those investments. So you can see there, like LAIF has a 2.1% current yield. You can compare that to what our municipal bonds are getting currently, which is right around the 2.93% range. And those bonds will both mature within this year. So that's where we're at right now. So.
Getting back to that 1.3 million, you said it was like a line of credit. So where is that money going to reside? Excuse me?
Oh, that's actually on the agenda.
It's an agendized item.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Save that.
I was trying to whisper.
I'm hard of hearing now. You know.
She wasn't whispering loud
You don't have
enough
to
for
whisper. You can yell at me. Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay.
May we have a motion?
We have a motion. Yes. To accept the investment report.
Sure, I will make a motion to accept the investment report.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we can go to the expense approval.
So I'm happy to answer any questions on these. I did want to point out on page 42 the summary of the funds that have been expended. Some of the larger expenditures this month. I don't know if you can see it, but we had the biggest one was for Waterworks engineers. Of course, that's a regular recurring expense. We also had our auto and general liability insurance coverage for the next year. That payment was on there, as well as our public assistance consulting firm, Aptum, 2 payments to them for this last month. Those were the main checks that were written. So happy to answer any questions, though, on any of the other ones.
I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion to accept the expense report, right?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Legal report.
Do we check numbers in there?
What was the motion? To approve
To
as
approve the expense report.
Actually, I think you,
stated. As stated.
Do I need me to say it differently?
No, did you say as stated in the agenda?
I did not say that last part.
I didn't think so. I think you need the checks referenced one way or another, right?
Okay, let me get to the right page. I will repeat it. Okay. So I make a motion to approve the general fund check numbers 54232 through 54331 for the month of December 2019, totaling $809,889.59, exclusive of voided check number 54243 and authorization of a similar amount allowing or adjusting for extraordinary budget or board-approved items during the month of January.
and I'll second that.
I should have just said the way you told me to say
All
it.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
It's a
Okay.
mouthful.
Appreciate that. Okay, now Emily, you're up for legal report.
I don't have anything to add to Kevin's summary, so.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, no unfinished business. We can move to new business. 9A. Jim.
I'm actually excited about this item.
It's amazing.
I was going to say, can I
I
borrow
never knew
it?
what a vacuum truck was until the fire.
They suck.
They are. They're very
Pretty cool.
fantastic piece of equipment.
So this isn't the big overhead Badger Vactron that we see with the 8-inch suction and 4,500 PSI wand that's operated by a joystick. But it is an extremely valuable tool. RDO equipment company made this available to us when we really needed a second vac unit it has proven invaluable. I've been able to have 2 crews out performing excavation that requires vac units because of this. So the salesman for RDO actually prompted Clint and said, we have this unit for rent because we were just looking at renting for a period of time, and he offered that the rental fees paid, 100% of those rental fees paid would be applied to the purchase price if we decided that we wanted to purchase it at the end of a 6-month period. So that brought us down to the roughly $60,000, $59,739.60 to purchase, remaining balance to purchase this equipment. We will need a second vac moving forward for years to come for meter installations and repairs, for new service lines. We have an existing vac unit that's pretty large, which we will absolutely use, and we do every single day, I think, since we've had both of these in use. The small one is nice because it can be hauled behind a service truck and a little more mobile, and it gets us into some tighter spots than the other one, and allows us to get into places that we haven't been able to before with a dump truck, and certainly less disruptive in general. So,
What's the lifespan on one of these trucks? So does, just
so this is actually a trailered unit. So when I came to the district just about almost 13 years ago, right now, we had a ditch witch that we had for 15 years before that. So I think we ended up with 15 years of use out of that anyway. I would imagine that, and this is good equipment. It's Vermeer, and it's good.
It is.
And it's just about Ford Chevy, right? Preferences in some of these, I think, but they have pretty good quality equipment. Clint, our mechanic, has a pretty good handle on how the maintenance and how to preserve its life. And so it's difficult to say we're going to use it every single day, so maybe we don't get that 15 years out of it without some major repairs, valves and such. It literally is a shop back on steroids. we can get a pretty good life expectancy out of it, but the use, I think, over the next few years is really going to prove beneficial.
So, and it also relieves us of a lot of labor, right? It is a shovel, correct? If I'm not mistaken, they're digging with it and vacuuming up the.
Actually, no. So, what it does is it works with high pressure water,
right,
in a wand, and that mixes up the dirt into a nice little
slurry,
vacuumable mud puddle,
right?
And it actually sucks some rocks up. And it has a 4-inch diameter hose in there, so it gets clogged up every once in a while, but it's got pretty good suction power. So we just liquefy the excavation and pull it out with a vacuum. 500-gallon storage tank or so on there. So
what's great is it's not intrusive.
So
Yeah.
What's really nice about it, and it used to be very interesting to me when I first started learning about 811, call before you dig. It was hand dig only with a shovel, and you have a plastic gas line. It's like the dirt is hard, so you're jamming the shovel down there, and it's a tree root. No, it's a gas line. With the wand, you're able to move that wand rapidly enough, and with that water pressure, you can actually excavate much safer around utilities. So it's a really good tool safety-wise as well. And I think there's probably an argument to be made that we probably have less back injuries related to excavating processes than we would with traditional digging and digging bars and such. So
decrease workman's comp, is that what you said?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
Big
can
time.
imagine.
Why?
So there's all kinds
So
of
it changes
benefits.
the modifier
A lot of benefits
just
to
by
it, for
having
sure.
the equipment?
Great tool.
Changes the modifier by not having claims.
It'd be nice if we could just have an overhead six, but I'm not
What do
asking
those
for
run?
$10,000.
Is that what they run?
Hundreds of
350?
thousands, yeah.
That's what, when I initially saw this, I thought, oh, we're getting one of those big ones? But, yeah, the trailer's
I
good.
want to learn to operate it.
I know. I was like, we need that in the next parade.
Parade, there you go.
So I guess basically, what's the return on investment here? I mean, we're saving money in labor or time over.
These injuries.
I mean,
Injuries.
you can do a calculation, but I dare say that it's probably incalculable, the benefit that we have from return on investment.
It's a rate. What we're looking at is we had 3 backhoes and a loader. We're going to supplement. We're not going to get 3 more backhoes and
Right.
back in. We don't need that amount. This is going to supplement one of those backhoes from coming in, where this is going to allow us to do much more flexible work out there. And from an operational standpoint and where we're at, this is going to be much more beneficial than replacing with 3 more backhoes out there.
It definitely suits our operations more for the next 3, 4, 5 years than a backhoe would. We're still going to need backhoes, just for sure.
Kind of working smarter too, in a way, it just helps you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So are we able to repurpose the insurance claim monies to purchase this?
The insurance,
In replacement
the
of?
insurance was not a replace in kind policy. It was a depreciable asset.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a bummer, but yeah, that's what we were insured for.
Did they give us a competitive price? When I say that, just, based upon what you
Yes.
looked around and?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay.
Clint did his homework before
Okay.
hand, so.
great.
And you get a similar back, you're in that neighborhood. I think we were a little lower than next high. Honestly, I don't want to state it. I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
I know that the Vermeer, when we replaced the ditch witch, we replaced it with a Vermeer, and their price mark was well below ditch witch for sure.
Okay.
And so when you start comparing what you're really getting, ditch witch or Vermeer, probably in the total, probably those are the two that you want to compare.
Right.
So as I'm reading this was a new unit when we started using it, or because it looks like it says the total cost of a new one
Yes.
was quoted at X
Yes,
price.
we broke it in.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not buying a used one at a new year's price minus the rental price.
It's used by us.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I mean,
Effectively.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you, Jim.
I don't know if you're going to take any public comment on it, or do we want?
Is there any,
Is RDO a Butte County company?
They have a,
What's the RDL stand for?
RDO?
RDL. What's its, I don't know.
I'm not in the equipment business. I
I
don't
don't
know.
remember. I know that they have a good presence and we've purchased on RDO. I know they have representation in Butte County. I imagine that they're not,
It's a trailer, does it have a license and a registration that goes with it for this address?
yes.
Okay, so it's a higher tax rate than if you bought it in Chico.
Well, if we lived in Chico,
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
but it's licensed here, so yeah.
yeah, okay.
okay, all right.
So you're getting your sales tax.
Okay, so
Do we have a motion? to-
Yeah, I move to approve to authorize the district manager to execute a purchase of the 2018 Vermeer Vactron, model number LP573 SDT, vacuum can't say it. God, I can't say it. Excavator, thank you very much, from RDO Equipment Company for the remaining balance that is due of $59,937.60.
Taxes and less.
We have a-
I second. With
Oh.
just one correction, you just flipped the price. 59,739
Okay,
and 60 cents.
all right. 59739.60.
There you go.
I'll second you.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Little
Motion
Bill's-
passes. Thank you very much,
Our
Jim.
crew members, thank you.
A little dyslexia, I guess.
And we still got,
I didn't
we've
do the
got one more item. Interim water supply.
So we're on to interim water supply. Yes. Late in the day, after the early morning. Interim water supply has proven to be much more of a need than we had anticipated. I think, and I presented it to Kevin initially, and I thought, yeah, well, we'll get some people that want it. And holy smokes. It wasn't long before we were backlogged, and there was a long, long wait that added to some frustrations and both ends, customers and us, trying to figure out how we fulfill our promise, our obligation to our customers, and we found a way to do it. Again, there's still those trouble ones out there, but there still is a need, and I had commented in the previous report that we're about 6 a day, and I think that's about what we're looking at, right? 6 or a little bit less sometimes, and so, but it's right in there. So we still have a need, and I think as more people realize and things get cleaned up, right, then we're still going to have that continued need for that. I look at we'll be presenting to you what our permanent meter service connection will look like, and we hope to carry that out in the spring. I'm kind of just rough talking about March, April, something like that, before we start really installing meters and exactly what that looks like. But I think really when we talk about people using water in places, and then the interim water service was really kind of developed so that we certainly protected the public drinking water system from potential contamination, known and unknown, and certainly at a higher risk. But that destroyed parcels. And I think that's what we're really looking at, is we're not necessarily going to destroy parcels as we embark on the meter installations. We're looking at standing structures and new construction, right? And as we do that, a lot of this new construction now are standing structures, and so that's where we'll probably end up focusing our meter installations, permanent service connections on those standing structures and those particular users. We're still going to have the need to use water at destroyed parcels that we probably wouldn't necessarily be able to get meters to or focus on that. So I think for the next year or so, and I asked for a 12-month extension, that the interim water supply program be extended that to meet the needs of our customers and to allow us the time to properly embark and get the meter installations well at hand. So it's a nice, certainly a valuable way for customers to use water during construction needs, and it's certainly still under the water quality advisory. And we still need to work towards completing the lifting of the water quality advisory system-wide. So it seems to me that an extension of the interim water supply as it reads now allows PID staff to work through permanent service connections and how we complete that, and allows our customers to use water as they've been accustomed to in the interim on these destroyed parcels.
So just one thing too is that the policy has worked really well. It's done its job. We finally have been able to keep up with the volume, and the price has actually held pretty well based on where our costs are. So overall, that's held pretty well standard or set pretty well. Shelby brought up the point about FEMA reimbursement on this. We are still asking for FEMA to cover these costs, and if they do, this will be a reimbursement back to the customer. But because it was not a standard before, and because they weren't there before the disaster, so it wasn't a currently related infrastructure issue, it's taking a little bit more time to argue that point. So it's the argument of the point is through the mitigation dollars. That's what we talked about with that large portion of the $406 that we're going to have included in that 428 plan.
But I think going back to that argument of why it should be covered by FEMA, even though it wasn't pre-fire, part of the distribution lines, is the fact that there was a decision that we made to put it behind the meter.
Yep.
Versus in front of the meter, so that's on us, not on the customer.
Yeah.
And I have heartburn still around this issue of on the backs of our customers when it's not their fault.
Yep.
And I get it. I just don't like it because I do get those calls from people saying it's one more cost, it's one more barrier, and especially for people who were severely underinsured or are trying to get back on their property in an RV or a temporary living situation while they're trying to figure out what they're going to do next. It's $500 and almost $570 or $550 is a lot of money for people. I know, and if Woody was here right now, he would tell me I'm wrong, and he would just like he did last time.
But that argument is being definitely portrayed to FEMA.
Yes, and that's where last time I was okay because we stipulated when I made the motion, I stipulated that when reimbursement by FEMA occurs, that customers will be reimbursed those funds.
Yep, and that's still the same case.
I just want it codified because I didn't see it in the proposal again. So unless it's going to harm.
That's what I need to ask. I need to ask our consultant on that because sometimes when you codify policies based on FEMA reimbursement, that really does harm.
No, I gotcha.
Yep.
So
let me run that by them before we codify that, and if it's not, then we'll bring it back as an amendment to the policy.
Okay.
You want to just table it?
So maybe,
Well, the only reason why we're not going to table it is because there was an expiration.
it's expiring tonight, right, or at this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you good with that? Can I bring you back
With a
information?
commitment to bring it back to where we can.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I have another issue because I've been telling people when they're calling me about it, when it's reimbursed, then the plan is that you would get that credit back on your bill.
Yeah.
Homeowners
Which is what we
insurance
agreed
companies
when I
haven't been
approved-
covering this at all, the homeowners insurance?
I've heard a couple people got their
Yeah,
insurance.
handful.
Not a majority.
Yeah, it just depended on the relationship and the company.
I have submitted mine to my insurance company as a new code upgrade. I have not heard back on whether they're going to accept it that way or not, but it is an option to try. But
We have a letter that we hand out to customers for that purpose.
And the other issue is the one you and I have talked about several times when customers have called me is the whole issue of standing structures and whether the standing structures have to pay for it to be put on versus people with a destroyed parcel and needing it for the intended reason this policy came before this board.
Was destroyed parcels, and then we look at some of the hazards that are presented even at standing structures. So I think that, I'm no expert, but I suspect that our policy prior to the fire has bearing on standing structures. Certainly, there are instances where standing structures have now presented a hazard because they have some sort of a pump system that can overcome the pressure. So therefore required to have backflow prevention at the service connection. So anything that triggered that was always prior to the fire on the onus of the homeowner. So it was their responsibility to install or have installed all costs associated with backflow prevention and maintenance going forward, testing, repair, the whole there's a lot of there, so to speak. So our goal is to provide every service connection with backflow prevention. And so those standing structures that have come into our radar that present those particular hazards or that hazard pre-fire purchased the backflow through the interim water supply and certainly has been more beneficial to our customers in that particular case.
So to answer,
frankly, it's a really good deal.
so the things he's speaking of, the one that we've seen a lot is the tanks. So once you have a tank with a pump on it, you've created an issue with a backflow issue. So we've worked through some of those issues. The policy states that if it fell under the policy of pre-fire, then there was a requirement. And if it's a destroyed parcel, it's a requirement. If nothing had changed between pre-fire, post-fire, nothing's changed under the policy, there is no requirement for that at this point in time. But if they created a new hazard, that's where that requirement was then put in place.
If we put a new lateral in at a standing structure, does the backflow, then we put in a backflow preventer as well?
It didn't happen on my property.
We do if we've identified a hazard on the property.
Or if the sampling came out, if you had some hits on the sampling? Is
No,
it?
not
there was
if
nothing
they're.
regarding
yeah.
No.
Okay.
It was if we physically, if we did a survey of the property, or if it was noticed that there was a pressurized septic tank or a water tank, something to this effect. If we knew of that, then we were requiring that backflow.
Okay.
But that was a requirement pre-fire.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
And we've certainly missed them. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we're not, as much as we can see of Paradise these days, we don't see everything. We try to be as certain as we can that when we are doing that we're trying to observe those hazards.
There wouldn't be any of these USDA grants for backflow prevention. Would there?
No, I haven't seen any.
I'll tell you, in my normal job, we have helped people out with the grant we received
Uh-huh.
from North Valley Community Foundation.
Okay.
We've helped people pay for it that can't afford it.
Because I'm thinking down the road, the board's going to have to grapple with this down the road again. And it sure would be nice to consolidate and get it past us, I guess you might say, somehow.
Through the ask through FEMA, we're pushing on FEMA.
Okay.
I just can't rely that they're going to approve it. But there's hazard mitigation factors to backflow prevention.
Right. Okay.
That is a mitigating factor against the depressurization of the system, which
Correct.
included the
Okay.
contamination of the system. So we're arguing that till we're blue in the face, and we're hoping that is included in our ask. If that's included in our ask, then we are in great shape. But we can't rely on that and take that burden on ourselves if that was to fall through.
I see. Okay.
The meters is easy. Meters we owned. They were there pre-fire. They're damaged, easy squeezy.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Just be nice to somehow.
I know.
Yep.
It would be.
When I saw what was going on when we started really surveying the system from damage and what we, Sandy's mentioned that we've talked about, it's not really a science project. We're really trying to recover a system. But in that, we've learned a lot of things and made some suppositions about what may or may not have happened and looked at some of the science, right? And so when I looked at backflow prevention, because we know that we went negative in a lot of places. And we know that we pull fumes and smoke, and that's a hazard to the public drinking water system. So when I looked at that, it occurred to me that this is a hazard that I don't think any cross-connection control specialist has ever considered as a hazard to the public drinking water system would require backflow prevention, or that backflow prevention would be a substantial method to prevent or reduce the exposure to that type of contamination. So I am really a huge proponent of backflow prevention for numerous reasons. This just adds to my support of protecting our public drinking water systems through backflow prevention.
I don't disagree with having backflow devices. I think they're absolutely a necessity, especially with what we've learned. My struggle is how they're getting paid for, because it should have been part of the permanent plan of distribution pre-fire, 100%, if we'd only known what we know now, right? And now we're moving forward, and it's my worry is it's not going to be able to be reimbursed back, because that'll be deemed in double dipping, if you will, and and it's something that we're saying to the homeowner: you can't have your contractor put it in because it's PID property, but we want you to pay for it. So that's my issue. That's my rub.
Yeah.
And Kevin knows my rub on this. I think every text I send him, it's like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
And I've thought about that too, as I've talked with customers about it, and kind of placing my own, get a backflow at my house. And that I think the thing about that is there is a benefit that PID has this. It benefits the customer. For sure.
Yes.
And I think that the ongoing costs, I know that there's that initial $550, $750, $900 cost, but I think when we look over the lifetime of what we're really doing for our customer in owning that and maintaining that, testing that at a small annual fee, I think there's a huge benefit to the customer there too that they wouldn't have experienced before in many cases. I understand we're in a totally different place now. We're rebuilding houses like crazy that wouldn't have been rebuilt, that may or may not have had that requirement. But many did have that requirement, and there were more and more as we were proceeding through cross-connection control, pre-fire. We were identifying many, many more locations that require backflow for many reasons. One of the main reasons that were coming up that we're not in new construction, but we're in existing construction, were pressurized or alternative septic systems. They're pressurized, pressure dosing, sand filtration, and that presented a major hazard. So, and we're going to have that going forward for certain, and that's a big one, right?
So, can we have a motion tonight, and then you'll bring it back if necessary?
Just say you want it brought back.
Okay.
So make
So
a
you'll
motion to approve.
Motion to
and
approve.
with it to be brought back next board meeting with an answer on the codification of the FEMA reimbursement.
Okay.
So are you just approving it for a month, or?
No, well, would you not approve it if it was not?
I'd be a no.
You would be, even if you couldn't codify the FEMA reimbursement, even though we're attempting to do it, but we felt that codifying it would affect the claim itself
And that's where.
because of the FEMA garbage.
Well, we don't want to know how you will vote for it in the future, but
Maybe it'll pass even if.
So approve
Yeah.
it with it expiring as of February 29th,
right,
2020.
right. Okay, let's make a motion for. Excuse me.
Public comment?
Oh, public comment. Any comment on this? No comment.
I have a question.
Yes.
So what you're trying to decide whether or not to extend it for temporary service, for interim service, or will it be required of every homeowner in town?
What's in front of us today is just the continuance of the interim policy.
Right, okay. Well, I think the interim policy brought a lot of people back here. So I personally have a home line building, I have interim water, and my daughter has a house that existed, and we put a backflow in that one as well. I don't know why we do that.
There's that question again.
Actually, we had a backflow that burned, so it was constructed in 2000, so they put the backflow in then.
Sure.
Because, I mean, as I understand, Chico has backflows, okay, on all their properties?
Not all of them.
Not all, yeah.
But quite a few.
It-
I mean, when
it's-
you get
yeah.
into big cities, backflows are all over the place.
It's part of the building code now, but,
Yeah, it's part of the building code.
yeah.
But, yeah, I know the backflow was in one house, it was built in 2000. But, yeah, I mean, I understand your, saying that there are people who cannot afford this. And, it would be wonderful if they does reimburse, but,
Can I ask the question, if we don't extend the interim water supply as it stands and it goes away, how do we provide water to those users that are going to want that water at destroyed parcels? Because we're still getting a half a dozen, a day.
There would be no policy of requiring it, so you would just be able to go turn them on.
Right.
So we go turn them on without backflow prevention.
If there wasn't a identified
Well, you could still
hazard.
install there just wouldn't be a cost.
An existing.
Construction use has always been, construction use of water has always been a requirement for backflow prevention. And
What if they're not using it for construction? Now we're getting into the weeds. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think also when you look at it, you could place that argument. I can go back and forth with it all day long. When you put an RV on there, you have a pump on the RV water system
Right.
that can easily overcome the pressure. So now you have a pressurized system on the parcel that requires backflow prevention.
Jim, I'm not
we
disputing
totally
the issue of
agree with
that
you,
need.
yeah.
My issue is who's paying for it.
Absolutely, I get that. I just want to make sure that as we go forward, that it's still accessible to the people that are still buying it.
Right.
How long?
Thank you, Jim.
Again, now that you brought that up, here's what's happening. CAL FIRE will issue a fuels reduction burn permit for $56, and you can do this on your private property. You stay so many feet away from your neighbor's property, and you have to have a reliable water source and hose to extinguish it if necessary. So what most of the people are doing, where there isn't interim service, they go across the street where there is, they get a couple 100 feet of hose and drag it across the street.
Oh, really?
So I turned in a complaint for my neighbor doing that.
Oh, wow.
Well, in answer to your, Ward, in answer to your...
Thank you for your vigilance, Ward.
I believe is a acceptable amount of time for you to get back with an answer.
We'll go ahead and make a motion for
Really?
Yeah.
basically 1 month.
I could
guess.
probably get it tomorrow, but
Just make the motion.
I don't want to have another board meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So what I want is
Yes.
at the end of February, that'll give me to, because whatever the end date of the February board meeting, I'll have an answer for you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a speaker.
Only because I'm a Robert's Rules of Order fanatic. How about tabling this until the next meeting and then just leave everything as it is right now?
The answer to that was that it expires today.
Policy
So
expires.
It was a 1 year policy that expires
Actually,
tonight.
8 months. 8 months.
8 months, yeah.
Excuse me, 8 months.
So we
I kind of understand what Shelby's saying because I knock on a lot of doors and I go to a lot of meetings and I've actually sat in the other building in the front lobby many times. In fact, Kevin has seen me more than a few times, and I listen to people just say, "Why do I have to pay this fee? You're killing me."
Right.
And so I feel their pain, but I also understand that the money has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Well, there is hope that there could be reimbursement. So that's
So the argument to the other side of that is that I want to burn the slash on my property, so I paid the $500 and something to get an interim device, so I had the water on my property to do it. All right. There are going to be people who, like me, are going to do whatever it takes to make sure that property stays clear. I am going with the private tree removal thing. So it's going to be up to me to do all of that stuff, to remove the trees and to get rid of the debris. So for every argument that somebody's going to say, I don't want to pay it, the other person, there's going to be somebody else out there that's going to say, I will pay it because And I think, to me, it's an added value to the property if you decide to sell it down the road and say, hey, the interim water's already here, this is here, that's there. So you can go either way. But
I keep repeating myself.
I know I understand. But not only am I a board member, I'm a customer.
I'm a backflow. I should have a bumper sticker. I support backflow devices. But I think FEMA should be paying for it as part of our recovery.
Yeah.
Hey, one last little question. We had a program was it called the CARE program? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, where we kind of subsidized lower income families on their water bill. Okay, would it be possible to do something with the backflow prevention device where we subdivide but these are for special case scenarios, people that
I would hate to give set aside PID funds for that, but I would be more than happy to have Mickey reach out to North Valley Community Foundation to see if they would support that.
Okay. Oh, is that
Yeah.
okay? All right. Well, I think we've hashed this out pretty good. Do we have a motion to?
So I'm going to make a motion to authorize the extension of the interim water supply program through December 31st, 2020, with no change to the fees as described in the cost of service analysis interim water supply.
Would you like to extend it just the 30 days so that we can bring it back with Kevin's answer, or did you mean to say December 31st?
I meant to say what I said. And I understand the concerns and everything else, but so.
I'm going to second with an explanation. Does that make you nervous?
No, I'm good.
I heard every word that everybody said in this room. I don't see an option. And nobody else sees an option other than our concern of who's paying for it and how it's being paid for. I second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
No.
not in favor?
I
Thank
want
you.
it to come back.
Motion passes 3-1.
I will bring it back no matter what to you and give you an answer.
Thank you, Kevin. That would be fantastic.
We know Kevin will fix it for us.
Okay.
It'll show me a favor.
All right. Moving on. Committees of the district. Okay. We have several committees on the district in the district here. Is everybody content where they're at in their current committees? Would anybody like to move?
The only one that worries me is with Director Kellogg's departure.
Correct.
There's so much going on with the Parks and Rec and the lake. Mm-hmm. And I don't
So
remember.
the question on that, though, is if the Parks and Recs takes over, do we go from a standing committee to an advisory sort of?
Well, that's part of it, though, right?
Thing?
Between now and then.
Right, yeah.
Mark is by himself on that committee currently.
So I think that's where you would need to appoint somebody.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
here
Somebody
was my
needs to be
thinking. Here was my thought. We're most likely going to have another director in a month.
Let's see.
A month's
I
time.
would hope so.
Okay. So that I was thinking that person who's taking Bill's spot would fill that position next month.
So leave those vacant.
We just leave it vacant. That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Just leave it vacant. Is there a meeting scheduled? There's no meeting scheduled in the next month. So
if a
there's
meeting-
no,
If
the meeting does get called, I will substitute for it.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, you substituted last time, I think, didn't you?
You subbed for the one I couldn't go
I
to.
substitute for PID too.
You were a sub for a sub?
No, I sub for her committee and I sub for his committee.
So what do you
we
guys
can
think
make that happen.
about that? Is that
I'm
okay?
fine with that.
Okay. Why don't we just do that and we'll plug the new person into that committee.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay.
So I'm sorry, is Director
So-
Howard going to
if necessary, to
Correct.
supplement.
Yep. Is there a action that you've got to take to do that?
You have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Is there a motion to accept?
I think you just,
Oh.
doesn't the president
No,
just...
I think you have the power.
He just gavels.
Okay, that's the way it's going to be.
That's right.
For the next month.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that the only change you're making?
There was
Yes,
no
we'll
change.
leave that committee spot
You'll leave it
vacant.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. All right, now we can move on to appointment of public committee members. How about that? And we received some letters, and we have some people present here in the audience. Thank you.
I know. We had to see if they were. See how much fortitude they have.
So while we're looking at this, is there a certain number of per committee? I didn't see that in here.
You know, Georgianne, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no limit to how many public members can be on it.
No, the board, we don't have a limit at
Correct.
all.
Okay, that's this one.
So, we did receive, let's see, how many we got? Community, finance. We got three letters for the finance,
Three for the finance.
3 for finance.
One for community relations committee and one, Mr.
One was-
Raven,
you didn't specify,
And
right.
He did call, he said he was out of state.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Otherwise he would be here, and he was very interested in participating.
Okay. Would you guys like to come up and just introduce us or introduce yourself? Yeah. No pressure.
Since I'm the only one on the Community Relations Committee side, my name is Alan Hinman. I was commissioner in the city of San Jose. I've been up here since a week before the fire,
Great.
and I go to every meeting I can. I've seen most of these people. I've been to his father's house, and I know Kevin and Jim pretty well.
You
Great.
live in District 5, right?
I'm sorry?
Oh, two.
District 2. Okay.
2.
Great.
Thank you.
Community Relations is the best committee.
Oh, we have a little competition going here.
Who's the chairman of that one?
Thank you for the
just don't know
interest.
how much fun
Steve,
it
you
is.
want to come on up?
Steve Ayler. I was born Ayler, but it says Oler on the paper. Paradise, since I was 6 months before the fire, I bought my house. Wife and I are down in Durham right now. We get the email that says how many permits are set up. I think I'm 100. I got the email about the time number 100 came out. I got my permit about the time 100 came out. I worked for a company. I did some stuff, some volunteer type stuff at that company. And one of the things they told us was, people don't want to do anything until you ask them. And you guys asked me. Okay, you sent me an email, and I responded. So I'm here to volunteer, here to do my part for my community, and I think finance will be a party.
Thank you, Steve. I think you're in. Okay.
Amanda's going to speak.
Oh, Amanda, I'm sorry.
And I've been living in Paradise since 1987, and I'm currently rebuilding my home, and I've been in finance for about 40 years now. I currently work for Valley Oak Children's Services. I've worked for Tri-County Economic Development Corporation, which is now 3-4. So I understand economic development and trying to get us back, on track. I've worked at the Boys and Girls Club. I worked at the Chamber of Commerce, but like I said, currently I'm with Valley Oak Children's Services. And I might even want to be on the other committee if it means I get to spend more time with them.
Yeah, right.
Jim and I are pretty good friends. We go back to where, I have 180 PSI at my house, so. So anyway, I'm here to offer my services as
Great.
finance or community relations, either one.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay.
I'm Ward Haverhill, and I currently serve on the Customer Relations Committee, and I did not submit a letter. I think my letter's probably 4 or 5 years old by now, but it hasn't changed much. I would ask, though, if you've heard from Chuck Bell. I've talked to him several times, of course, because we are friends. I asked him, if you don't want to be on it, let me know, and because I'm going to be at the meeting. He has not called me back, so I assume he probably wants to, too.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck. Ward.
We appreciate you, Ward, coming
Yeah.
into community relations.
Yeah.
We're getting stuff done there. It's fun.
This is the only place where I criticize. When I'm in public, it's all praise about people.
It's okay.
Yeah,
You keep us on our toes.
that's right. Okay, so Georgianne, do we just
So
kind
on
of?
the bottom of the memo, I kind of have a
Okay.
recommended on the motion.
Okay.
But then we do need to specify where Mr. Raymond would go, since he had no preference.
Correct.
Right.
So if you were to say, I move to appoint,
Uh-huh.
mention the members by name to the appropriate committee.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd put him on community
We have quite a
relations.
few members on the Lake Committee, right? Public members.
And that one's kind of
Well, that-
dying too.
And that's, we don't know if it's going to continue, right?
No, I would just put them on, the Community Relations Committee really is, and I agree, it does have a lot of, it juggles a lot of balls, right, back and
Right.
forth. And
Sure.
it does kind of, sometimes it does push the Finance Committee to make decisions on different things, and I think it really kind of pushes up to the top of what you're really trying to do with public members and getting the message out to the
Right.
public.
Okay.
We have a project to do too, right, Ward?
Right. Okay, that sounds great. Maybe we'll plug him into
And if
community relations.
If he doesn't want to be there, then we'll shift him around.
Great.
The one thing.
Well, he mentioned he was interested in participating on either committee.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll make a.
Before you, so the folks that did not show up tonight, there was no requirement for them to be here, correct?
I sent them a letter.
Sorry.
And you've hung in here this whole evening.
No. You've watched it all happen.
Just a written request to be on there, and
Right.
then there's no requirement to up that request on a yearly basis.
I
Okay.
sent everyone a letter, thanking them for their letter of interest and that we would be meeting tonight and considering appointments. Mr. Raymond called me,
Communicated
that he was going to be out of state.
Well, I was really excited to see so many people show an interest, and really,
Great.
maybe we'll have even. I don't know which districts everyone's lives in, but maybe somebody will put in their hat for the vacant district seat as well.
See how that goes. Right.
Not sure which districts you live in.
So we have to go through each name, nominate each person individually?
I think we can do
You
it.
just say, I move to appoint Alan Hinman, let's say, and Chris Raymond to the Community Relations Committee, and appoint
And
the names for the Finance Committee. State
oh,
committees.
okay.
Do you want me to do it? I'm happy to do it. I move to appoint Alan Hinman Jr. and Chris Raymond to the Community Relations Committee, and to appoint Gary Ledbetter, Stephen Oler, Amanda Sherman to the Finance Committee.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. You're in.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah. Let the fun begin, huh?
Our people will call you.
No, thank you again. Really appreciate the interest. Thank you very much.
Tell them the swearing-in ceremony has to be memorized as 1,000.
Talk to Ward.
It begins at midnight.
Okay, moving on here. Director vacancy.
Right. So you have the memo. I think you guys are getting pretty good at this, understanding what the options are. The preferred option, obviously, is what we have done in the past, which is to advertise the vacancy for what's the required amount of time?
15 days.
We have to post it 15 days
15
before
days.
the appointment is made.
So, and before our next board meeting, to have the opportunity for them to submit letters, and then have it closed before that board meeting so that you can review those applications or letters, and then have them have the appointment done at the next board meeting.
And this appointment, their term ends in December of 2020 as well?
Well, basically, yeah, so there'll be this seat would be up at the November 2020 general election. And then that person could put their name in that hat.
So, but Bill was
And then
through
they're elected,
2022, right?
But
Wasn't
with
Bill's?
with an appointment, you
can only go to the
appointed
next-
until the next election.
Election. So that basically is almost the
It
entire
is
board.
everybody.
It's all of us.
All of
Everybody.
The entire board will be up for reelection.
No, it's just Bill's, he resigned in the first half of his term.
But you're only running for two years, and then you'll be up for re-election after that. So your term date doesn't change, but you have to apply because you're appointed in the midterm of your term to run for a 2-year term, and then after that you would be on the 4-year cycle. But yes, you're correct.
Understood. So
All-
everybody,
so
all
yeah,
four
all
of us,
five
all five will be up.
Here's your chance to clean house.
Board.
Get rid of them all.
Very true.
I got competition in Division 1. Somebody's already got experience.
Okay.
Although my house might be ready before yours.
Easily.
So, the question is to go ahead and
Yeah, so
advertise and post it for.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to authorize staff to distribute a press release after the board meeting announcing the Division II director vacancy and setting a deadline to apply for no later than 4 p.m. on February 12, 2020, of a possible appointment to fill the vacancy at the February 19, 2020 Board of Directors meeting.
Do you have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Georgianne. Okay. Resolution of appreciation.
Yep. So Georgianne has done a beautiful job of putting together, I think with help with Mark and some other input, of a resolution of appreciation for Bill Kellogg for his service on the board, for his, how many years?
2005,
14 years of service on the board. So,
It's impressive.
yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to read it into the...
You're the autographer.
Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and read it. It's really nice, thank you. Okay, resolution of appreciation by the Board of Directors of the Paradise Irrigation District, presented to W.H. Bill Kellogg. Whereas Bill Kellogg has performed the duties of board member, vice president, and president of the board for the Paradise Irrigation District during his service from April 20th, 2005, through December 31st, 2019, and whereas Bill Kellogg has been an integral part of the district and has given the district the benefit of his knowledge, ideas, and leadership, and whereas Bill Kellogg has played a key role in contributing ideas, guidance for major projects including, but not limited to, pipeline replacement grant projects, storage tank rehabilitation and upgrade projects, Magalia Raw water bypass project, construction of a new corporation yard facility and relocation of the administration office, automated meter reading project, water rights petition for extension, and PID water system recovery plan following the destructive campfire in Butte County on November 8th, 2018. And whereas Bill Kellogg has served with diligence and great effort on various committees such as the Water Conservation Committee, liaison for the proposed Lake Ridge Park Botanical Garden, Facilities Meter Planning Committee for the district's new corporation yard, and a chairperson for the Paradise Lake and Recreation Committee and Ad Hoc Demonstration Garden Committee, where in June 2018 the PID Educational Demonstration Garden was opened for Ridge residents to visit and enjoy. And whereas Bill Kellogg is to be commended for his outstanding dedication and commitment to the district. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Paradise Irrigation District extends its thanks and appreciation to Bill Kellogg for his service to the district and the public. Passed and adopted this 15th day of January 2020 by the following vote at a regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Do we have
So we just would need a
roll call, please?
Do we have
Georgiana?
a second?
A second.
Okay.
Director Hansen?
Aye.
Vice President Boston?
Aye.
Director Mallard?
Aye.
And President Swart?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
And I really want to say, it comes from my heart to say that
Yes.
whole thing.
And Bill, if you're watching, thank you.
Yes. Please, Ward.
I feel it appropriate to make public comment here. I knew Bill for way too many years. And in my opinion, other than Director Heinke, he was probably the most in tune with the people of Paradise. I knew Director Heinke as well and miss him dearly. That's part of what being a public servant is being connected with the people that you represent, to be able to get the people's ideas to the board, get the board to discuss them with staff, get the staff to see how that would work for them, because it's the people's water company. It doesn't happen with a lot of places where there are elected folks, but most of the time it has happened here. And I think that Kellogg and Heinke were probably the two best directors that we've ever had here. Thank you for your time. Maybe one of you will catch up.
Thank you, Ward. Okay. All right. And thank you, Bill. Okay. Strategic Business Planning, Director Hansen.
This is something that kind of came from a conversation with a resident, customer, fellow Paradisian. He was asking kind of where we are, where did I feel PID as a whole was. And we talked a lot in detail, and towards the end I said, we've almost gotten to a status quo, because we know we've identified the issues, we've identified the fixes, and we're just kind of trudging along. And as I heard myself say status quo and trudging along, I said, oh my gosh, we can't be. What we have is an incredible staff. The workforce is over the top. The dedication and the wealth of knowledge that we have is very, very wide, but it's incredibly shallow. And what do we have to plan for tomorrow? How do we get our staff, all of our workforce, to get more training so that they have more depth? What do we do as far as a succession plan? Who is our next Bill? Who is our next Jim? Who's our next Kevin? Who's our next Ross? We don't have that. And as I usually do, I turn to Shelby for where do we go from here? What is it you think is a plan? We talked about possibly having some special meetings, bringing in Jim, Bill, Ross, all the tops of the departments or the areas, to get their ideas for what is our future and how do we plan that. We've got people coming up that are ready for retirement. We've got people coming up that we'll just lose through attrition, and we have no backup. If this sounds kind of harsh to say, if this was a publicly traded company and I did my homework, I wouldn't put my money here.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm at, and I want to fix that.
Do you have my response?
Sure.
Well,
Wait a sec,
I wanna-
because we bounce this off each other, and I want to let her go
So-
if she's over the backflow thing.
I am. I don't hold grudges. So, when Director Hansen and I had this conversation, PID is no different than every other entity in this county.
Yeah.
That has been severely impacted with the impacts of the fire. And everyone is scrambling, trying to find qualified workforce. And we've been really very fortunate here within PID that we have solid employees that have chosen to take this ride. But some people, my father-in-law in particular, people that are close to retirement, they'll say things like, I'm one bad day away from walking out the door. And we don't know if that's how some of our workforce feels. So I think that it's definitely time to have that conversation for the board to support you as the executive director and figure out how we can take some steps forward in succession planning and development. And we don't have to create the wheel. There's lots of wheels out there that I think that the board, without speaking for the other two, I think that there would be support to move forward with investing in that.
I don't think that we're truly broken. We've just been so focused on the things in front of us that we haven't planned for that leap down the road.
So I think I've said this before here, but if I'm not, then I'll say it now. If not, then you've heard it before. I'm a firm believer in training your replacement. So every department head should be working with one of their staff members that they feel would be qualified to take their place, and should include them in certain meetings and certain trainings and things like that. Even if you had to go out on an emergency sort of leave situation that could help cover your position while you were gone, or that one bad day, and the knowledge doesn't all walk out. The knowledge has been shared, and people have been mentored, and obviously our best opportunity to pick somebody would be somebody that was trained in our community here. So why not make sure that somebody's there? It's 100% I agree. It's like losing Bill. Did somebody was somebody able to tap his knowledge before he left? I think some of us picked some of it up, but it'd be great to make sure to know that you have somebody there that has the vision that you have, the knowledge that you have, and the ability to step up when necessary.
I think one thing, because this is more than just succession planning, it's really where are we going collectively? And, everyone's had their nose to the grindstone and just trying to get through. But at some point, we're all starting to surface up for air and look around and look at the landscape. And some of our best laid plans we have fallen short on because of political influences. But we still have to, at the end of the day, be able to pay the bills and serve the customer and the community to help with bringing Paradise back to whatever it's going to be in the future. So I think biggest thing is we need to open that discussion. We need to start talking about it.
So I'm looking for.
Yeah, and so my thought is we have a strategic business plan that was developed 2005, updated I believe in 2010, and it was up to basically be updated in 2015. There was a lot of things that went on with that, the district manager leaving. I was the interim for a while. There was a hire of a new district manager. So I was kind of waiting to see where that kind of laid out before we brought it forward. Then obviously 2018. And so really there is a base there that we can work off of that I think is important for the board to be the direction of that base. To basically go back to the mission statement, go back to where we are. And some of those goals and ideas in that strategic business plan are going to be completely different than where they were before. But I agree with Shelby I think we need to find out who we are. What are we? We need to look at our org chart. Org chart does not support our current business model. Right. We have people working out of class at every position in this organization. We got to look at, once we look at the org chart, we got to look at job descriptions. We got to look at where we are, how much labor is going to be needed to support what our goals are of PID and moving forward and how we support, those things. So I agree with you 100% that we really need to look at that, and there needs to be board direction down to us to allow us with input from obviously staff and upper staff of where we are going in there. Looking at that org chart and making those connections of who your replacements are, who's going to fill, who you're going to cross train on this side versus who you're going to cross train on this side, to really understand what we need. So I agree 100%, and I am fully on board on developing a plan to start this process here in the next month or two.
Well, I know what I want, I just don't know how to start it.
Would an ad hoc committee be?
Well, this is the question is, I don't, my personal opinion, I like full board participation.
Okay.
Ad hoc committees bring recommendations back that need full board buy-in. My question's going to be, is it something you would want an outside facilitator to come in and to do? And I've heard very good things about outside facilitation of these type of plans.
I would support that wholeheartedly,
Okay.
because I think if you have an internal member trying to facilitate it, you lose so much in the process. And there's some good facilitators in the community that do specifically strategic planning.
Yep.
And it's worth a small investment. I mean, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars
No.
in any way, shape, or form. So that would be my encouragement.
Okay.
My biggest concern is the depth. I don't want you, me, and the board.
No, absolutely not.
I want our employees, our department heads.
That's why an outside facilitator is going to be, I think, is a good option, because it takes me out of that. You guys choose on how far you want this to go down. You want every person in the organization to have input into what it is. That's your guys' direction. I fully support how you guys want to run this. Strategic planning is based on board direction, and then that gives me a roadmap to go, okay, now I know where we are leading, and I can go forward, and that's the roadmap that we're going down. And these are two extreme examples, okay? Your roadmap says, I want all brand new equipment, I want every service line in the district replaced, right? That's my roadmap. Another roadmap says, I want to cut every expense in the district, and I want us to be bare bones and sell all of. That's a roadmap, right? That's my map. That's where I'm going. I don't think that's where we're headed. We're going to be somewhere in the middle, but that's what I need from you guys from a directional standpoint.
I would like the fixed costs to be reduced, but we can talk about that later.
That's a roadmap.
So can you take that as direction?
Yep.
And
I'm going to work with Shelby on getting names of facilitators, and I'll reach out to those facilitators and bring back proposals.
I do really believe that time is of the essence. It's not something we can.
I support that.
Okay.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This last, and just from my perspective, I don't know about Jim's, but this last month, we finally were able to, like what you said, kind of bring our head to the surface and breathe a little bit.
Well, that's kind of where, and I don't mean to offend anybody.
You're not.
When I said we're kind of at status quo, what I meant was we've kind of got a handle on everything that we're coming across.
Yeah.
And it's not that we have a chance to breathe, because nobody's breathing. I mean, it's just that the words came out of my mouth and I went, oh my gosh, we don't know where we're going.
Right. Yeah. And it's true. We finally got a handle, and now we can kind of bring our head up and go, whew. But it's true. It's like, okay, you can finally see the horizon. You go, okay, what's after that? Right? What does it look like after that? And I think that's where you guys come into the role. Absolutely.
So one question though about the facilitator process, one strategy, and I don't know if we're required to for procurement rules because of being a special district or not, but we could issue an RFQ, request for qualifications,
We're not required to, but it's up to you on how you would like to see the proposals come back. If you would like to see them through an RFQ, then we can definitely issue the RFQ to have those qualifications come back so that you can see.
It's cleaner that way, in my opinion.
Jim?
It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but we were going down this road with JPIA, who had a facilitator. It's actually the instructor on the leadership training that Mickey and I attended for that year. Were we not already?
We reached out. We reached out to him, but I don't think it wasn't. I don't think he was working through the JPIA for that. I think he was working because he's the consultant to the JPIA. I think he was working as a consultant. He was going to work as a consultant for us, so we can send him a RFQ and get a proposal from him if that's the direction you would like to see, or if you would like to see specifically or within Dubuque County, or wherever you would like. I will reach out to him.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that, going out to RFQ to, you get people right in, we can make it simple, it doesn't have to be complex, it's just, here's my CV or my resume, and I have an interest, and here would be a.
Yeah. First, we have to decide on the description of what the work is, what we want that person to do for us. So there's a little work that we need to do to come up with that description, I think.
Yeah. And it could be, like you said, it could be as simple as,
So can we get copies of the previous 2010 version of whatever's out there?
I think it's on. Is it online or is it? I don't know if it's online. I will get you copies of the updated of the
Most
one
recent.
that was updated in 2010.
How did we handle that at that time?
It was done by George. George facilitated it. So the general manager facilitated the strategic business plan with the support from me. And it was, the 2010 was more of an update of the 2005. The 2005 was a real deep dive because he had just come on board and there was no strategic business plan that was developed. So that one was more of a deep dive, where the 2010 was more just of an update of the goals of the district to kind of give him a roadmap of where he would like to see the district moving forward. So. But the 2010 has all of the information from the 2005 in it, so nothing really changed that in those areas. So it still has the mission statement, the goals, and all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Great.
So you need a formal motion.
Just direction.
We need this direction, right?
Direction was
Direction
given.
to.
It says action may be taken.
Ready RFQ and distribute?
So the direction is to prepare the RFQ and distribute it out for proposals to be returned back to the board for decision.
Good with that?
I'm good with that.
You okay with that? Great. Perfect.
Sounds like exactly like what
I
we
just
said.
always need help with it. So,
She's wonderful. It's a top.
Okay, well, thank you. That was great, Dan. Appreciate it. Okay, application for community disaster loan. Ross.
So this is the community disaster loan is the loan from FEMA that basically allows for operational funding. We've provided some initial documentation that act as kind of a preliminary application process. So this is for the formal signing the promissory note and finalizing that documentation. The amount of the loan is capped at 25% of our operating budget for the year of the disaster. That worked out to $1.3 million. The term of the loan is 5 years, and it can be extended to 10 years. The interest rate is based on the U.S. 5-year maturity rate. At the end of 2019, it was at 1.6%. The interest doesn't begin to accrue until funds are drawn down. So it basically acts as a line of credit for operating funding. So it'll be available to us, but no interest will accrue until we actually draw those funds down. The best part is there's potential for cancellation at the end of that term of the loan. It's based on your 3-year deficit following the year of the disaster. So if our total operating losses for that 3-year period is greater than the loan amount, that total amount will potentially be canceled, forgiven. So.
Is there a are there other stipulations in the cancellation? Other than just the percentage of deficit?
It's supposed to be dollar for dollar.
And that's it.
That's it, yeah.
And as soon as you withdraw funds, then you have to start making the payments, so, right?
It'll be at the end of that 5-year term. So interest will accrue until that 5 years is up, and then after the 5 years, the total amount of the loan that you've drawn down from that available amount will be due at the 5-year point.
And so the recommended motion is that we would give you authorization to sign the note, but then before that first draw occurred, would that come back to the board?
Not at this point, so it would just be a line of credit available to the district for operational expenses. So really, it's you're authorizing us to draw down that loan down to the maximum amount if needed for operational expenses. You can put in their stipulation if you would like that if we were to draw on it, that it would be brought back for additional approval.
Well, I mean, I think, in my opinion, it'd be something I'd want this board to be aware of, because we have other competing debts out there that we have had some positive, pushed down the road. We've kicked the can.
Yeah.
So I think for the total,
This seems like it'd be a good reserve for us, just to hold, a holding
It's a backstop.
place. Yes, correct, backstop.
So if
So-
you would like for any, once a withdrawal is needed, that to be brought back to the board, then that's.
But the motion here is just allowing you to apply for the loan, to complete the paperwork, to submit the forms necessary to apply for the loan.
That's true.
It's not dictating the guidelines of it. So.
I don't think there was an additional stipulation after that it would come back to the board at this point. So, yeah. So why don't you, let's put in the motion that if any draw is taken on the loan, that it would first need to be approved by the board.
I have not reviewed any of the documents associated with this. Do you want that? Did Aptum assist with it? I don't.
It's FEMA guideline boilerplate documents for this. So.
Okay.
we don't want county council, or I'm sorry, we don't want council review.
She can review it. If you want the documents to be reviewed by legal, that's fine.
I would. That's just me.
Yeah, I think that'd be appropriate. I don't have a problem with that.
So what's our timeline on this? So if we ask you to review, can we just bring it back for the next board? Table it for the next board, or do we need to take action on it now?
I would take action on it now, pending legal review.
Okay. Got it.
I move to authorize Kevin Phillips, District Manager, to sign a promissory note for the community disaster loan in the amount not to exceed 1.329.504, and for Ross Gibb, Finance and Accounting Manager, to submit the forms necessary to apply for the community disaster loan, and to bring any possible draws to the board before completing and upon legal review.
Bingo.
I think you got it. That's the prettiest motion I've ever heard. I think you got it.
I didn't say it. You don't get pretty out of this.
Got it all in there in one breath.
Subject to legal review.
Second.
You blew them away, Dan.
And any draws taken. Any draws need prior board approval.
Yes.
And legal review before
Application submitted.
execution of application.
Right.
Very good.
There you go. I second.
I was in there.
You did it all.
Second, I already
All
seconded.
those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan.
We specialize in compound motions. So.
Okay, we're on number H here, amendment to district manager employment contract.
So, in December, at the end of the open session board meeting, the board gave direction to prepare an amendment to the district manager's employment agreement. If you recall, there was a provision in that January 16, 2019 agreement that had an evaluation to be conducted after 6 months. And consideration of a salary increase. You all were a little busy. and so that wasn't done until December. The direction was to increase the district manager's salary to $157,000 per year, and that increase would be retroactive to July 17, 2019. And that $157,000 would be the base for the salary increase that was to take place on January 20th or January 1st, 2020, as set forth in the original agreement. And that is what's before you right now.
So does this require a motion, or did we already approved it?
It requires a formal motion, yeah.
Okay. So I
Confirm that this represents the direction and that you are.
I make a motion that this confirms the direction given by the Board of Directors.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're looking for language for the motion, it would just be, I move to approve the agreement.
Okay, I move to approve the agreement.
Amendment to the agreement.
Amendment to the agreement. There you go.
Do we have a second?
I'm out. I've spoke my piece already.
Do we have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Kevin, for all your work. All right. Okay. Director's comments. Shelby, anything you'd like to pass on?
No, I think I said my piece earlier. I just, again, appreciate Jim coming forward and all his good comments. And appreciate all your hard work, Kevin.
Okay, great.
So, no, my thank yous to Bill, obviously, and then I hope everybody had as happy of a New Year as I had. We had a new grandbaby on New Year's Eve. Aubrey Rose.
That's a great name.
It is a great name. Yeah. Can't believe my son thought of it.
But that's great. Good. All right. Well, thank you, Greg. Dan?
I'm almost out of words because of that motion.
Yeah.
But I really want to just say thank you to the new committee members and Ward, of course. Welcome back. But thank you for coming forward and participating. There's been a few nights where Ward was on vacation and we didn't have anybody sitting out here, and it was really lonely. We just like it when the community gets involved, and it's just been great. And then, of course, I want to say everything again you only had an afternoon to prepare that. Was amazing. You got to be a speechwriter. And thank you for everything you and your crew do. And Georgiana was mentioned tonight, and I don't think she gets mentioned enough. But she's just amazing and humble, and now she blushes and all those things. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, and I'm going to echo that too. I thank you very much for sending us the letter of interest, and that's great. Help us run this district. We're looking for all the help we can get. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll go ahead and go into closed session. Oh, yep. Sorry.
Good news.
Sit back down.
Oh. If you want a larger turnout in people, you need to do what the town council does. Put a lot of contentious issues on the agenda.
Okay.
We'll work on it.
You don't want that.
One last question for the board members. I am from